Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please join us today in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we will be studying Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 14, Pregnancy of Diti in the evening. Hare Krishna, please join us for Jai Radha Madhav prayers. हरे कृष्णा डियर डिवोटीज, आप सबका स्वागत है, आप सबका अभिनंदन है। आज आप इस सेशन में आए एंड हरे कृष्णा, वी वुड लाइक टू वेलकम एवरीवन। हरे कृष्णा।
हरि बोल डियर व्यूअर्स, वेलकम टू द श्रीमद् भागवतम क्लास। आज जीव तत्व प्रभु जी हमें प्रोवाइड करेंगे, हमसे शेयर करेंगे लेसन्स ऑन चैप्टर 14 ऑफ श्रीमद् भागवतम कैंटो 3। सो प्लीज लिसन अटेंटिवली एंड टुवर्ड्स द एंड आप अपने क्वेश्चंस पूछ सकते हैं। इन अबाउट 45 minutes to an hour the class will end. So please do not post your questions during the class, क्योंकि आपके questions मिस हो सकते हैं। जब क्लास के लेसन्स एंड हो जाएंगे, प्रभु जी क्लास एंड करेंगे, उसके बाद आप अपने questions जरूर लिखिए कमेंट्स में। सीमा छनाना जी, हरे कृष्णा। पुष्पा शर्मा, SK पांडे, सरिता जी, सदीक्षा जी, राम कुमार जी, पंचराम जी, सुश राय जी, बिप्लब कुमार, नेहा शर्मा जी, लीला लिजम, संग्राम, अशोक कुमार, कौशल जी, शिव शंकर जी, नीरू जी, प्रसन्नजीत कुंती जी, अंकुश कुमार जी, महेश जी, करुणा जी, बागा सागर जी और बहुत सारे व्यूअर्स जिनके नाम स्क्रॉल कर गए हैं। आप सबका खास स्वागत है आज के सेशन में। जो नए व्यूअर्स हैं प्लीज़ अपनी लोकेशंस जरूर लिखिएगा सो दैट वी नो वेयर आर यू ज्वाइनिंग फ्रॉम। सो प्रभु जी प्लीज़ गो अहेड विद द starting Mangalacharan prayers and start the class.
Hare Krishna dear devotees, please join us for Mangalacharan prayers.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye. Shratam Svakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhatsatam Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Ruttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki.
Hare Krishna dear devotees, please join us in the recitation of the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3, Chapter 14. Hare Krishna. Sheshaka Uvacha Nishamya Kausharavinopavarnitam Hare Katham Karanashukaratmanaha Punah Saprapachatam Udyatanjalir Na Chatitrupoto Viduro Dhritavrataha Na Chatitruto Viduro Dhritavrataha. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shukdev Goswami said, after hearing from the great sage Maitreya about the Lord's incarnation as Varaha, Vidur, who had taken a vow, begged him with folded hands to please narrate further transcendental activities of the Lord, since he, Vidur, did not yet feel satisfied. There is no purport. Please join us for Guru Prati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurum Deenataranam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today we will be discussing happiness in Krishna consciousness and how by engaging in Krishna consciousness, by engaging in devotional service, keeping our focus at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, we can become the reservoir of all good qualities. Instead of becoming a Rakshas or a demon or a debauchee, when we engage in sense gratification, we don't want to engage in sense gratification because that's where we become a debauchee, we become a Rakshas, we become a demon. And that is not going to make us happy, because a person with that mindset is constantly, even though he may make a show on the surface that he is happy, he is actually burning inside. And we all understand, right? Chinta, anxiety. That chinta burns even a person when he is alive. चिंता और चिता में एक बिंदी का फर्क है, राइट? हम लोगों ने 8वीं कक्षा में पढ़ा था ये. तो एक बिंदी से क्या फर्क पड़ता है, क्योंकि चिता जो होती है, द funeral fire, the fire at the pyre, that burns the body after the soul has left the body. But chinta burns the body when we are still in the body. So we are constantly feeling such anxiety, such distress and such fearfulness when we engage in sense gratification. And by further engaging in sense gratification, we fall further down. So here we will discuss how we can elevate ourselves from all such relatively bad qualities and elevate above, transcend the three modes of material nature, which is very simple. All we have to do is to start with the raising of our hand and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare. And so we can, simply by engaging in Krishna consciousness, simply by pleasing Lord Shri Krishna, simply by carrying out Shravanam, Kirtanam, hearing and chanting of the glories of the name, form, activities, pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna, we can become happy. We can establish such wonderful relationships, long-lasting relationships with other devotees, with other living entities, so that we all together work together to please Lord Shri Krishna. And that is congregational chanting. That is, Sankirtan Yajna. Sang means together in a large group congregation. Kirtan, glorification. So we all glorify Krishna by our actions. And these actions can be performed by three ways: mind, body and words. Right? With our senses, the karmendriyas, we engage in pleasing Lord Shri Krishna. Yet at the same time, when we are engaged, of course, Maya Devi, she has one duty and she knows how to take care of that duty very well. She wants to always test who's a parakrit, just like on the surface, and who's a real bhakta. So she constantly tests us. And so sometimes she sends such tests our way. And we may feel that yes, Maya Devi is testing us, and she may be sending demons our way, because this is where it happens. There is a demon coming. He's going to take birth because of this incident, because of this chapter, what is discussed, the incident that is discussed in this chapter. So these are the tests Maya Devi takes, and it causes the devotees somewhat distressed, but actually brings us to true realization that yes, there will always be troubles in this material world. There will always be demons in this material world. We actually had an experience today. And sometimes even as devotees, we by mistake, make a mistake, but then we ask for forgiveness. So today what happened was, during our japa class, there was one person who was coming in and making all kind of weird sounds and noises, literally trying to disturb the devotees during the chanting session. And we just smile and so, okay, what should we do? So after some, deliberation, some consideration, we said, okay, maybe we should just remove this person. But then there is another interesting aspect. Zoom keeps flipping the names. So right, even though we are selecting that person to be removed from the group, it's so strange that Zoom played with us and actually selected someone else, and the name was so similar that by mistake we happened to have removed a devotee who was chanting. So we immediately asked for forgiveness, sent them the invite, and realizing that they cannot join in because they were removed once, we deleted the whole series, future series. But we continued the session after removing that person. But then the interesting thing is, these demons, they would come in one form or another. So here, this person came with a different ID, and again doing the same kind of activities. So we learn we should not remove people, because it is very interesting, tit for tat is the kind of mentality materialists have. We said we should actually give them chance. We should give everyone chance, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave chance even to Jagai and Madhai. So all we need to do is make them sit in the waiting room instead of removing them. And we made them sit in the waiting room, asking them if they would like to join. So just let us know, personally, so that way we can admit them if they are with the right consciousness. And after some time, of course, when demons are not satisfied, what they do after they are not able to just stay frustrated, they leave. So this is what we saw happening. And this is where, again, see, today, even simple YouTube videos and so many things that happen, they put all kind of ads. And these ads are very materialistically, oriented. And as devotees, we have to be always on the guard. So this is actually helping us in our Krishna consciousness. How? Because we realize that when Lord Krishna appeared in Vrindavan, such a pious land, such a pure land, with so much simplicity, with so much purity, where Lord Krishna is there, Radharani is there, all the gopis, Nand Baba, Yashoda Mai, they are all there. And still, Kamsa was sending demons, right? So there were demons coming, and Krishna was simply killing them one after another. So similarly, we as devotees, we simply seek mercy of Krishna and say, okay, now, even though a person is coming in the japa session and try to create disturbance, we should not remove them anymore. We made a simple resolution. We should just place them in a waiting room, because that's what teachers do, right? Give the students a chance to correct the behavior so that they can again get an admission. And even once, Srila Prabhupada used to say that sometimes people, they were, like criticizing Hare Krishnas, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada in the movement, because they had taken to very simple life and higher thinking by following the 4 regulative principles and minimum 16 rounds chanting every day, and following religious principles by taking to devotional service. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada said, don't worry, because even if they criticize, they are calling out Hare Krishnas, and that will purify them. So again, we should give them chance. And this lesson we learn from none other than Nityananda Prabhu, who saved Jagai and Madhai from being annihilated, from being killed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, seeing that they had hit Nityananda Prabhu on his head with a pot and he was bleeding, at that time he invoked his Sudarshan Chakra. Yet at the same time, Nityananda Prabhu immediately caught hold of his feet and he said, Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you cannot kill in this age, in the Kali age, because this age you are appearing as Patita Pavana. You have to destroy the demonic mentality, the demonic mindset, and that has to be corrected. So that is where it is very important. Now in this chapter, there are various glories coming. So glories of Vidurji, right? Now sometimes people say, but Vidur was a Dasi Putra. How could he be glorified? Well, because Krishna consciousness is above the 3 modes of material nature, and even the 4 Varnas, right? Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, they are under the influence of material nature. But when one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, when one is engaged in devotional service, bhakti yoga, buddhi yoga, then that person is above the 3 modes of material nature. And we also have to understand that Vidurji is none other than Yamraj, one of the Mahajanas. Mahajana yena gatha pantha. So the general populace, the devotees, they follow the footsteps of Mahajana, which means the instructions of Mahajana, not the behavior, but also the instructions. Behavior automatically happens. If we try to just follow behavior, then we become Parakra Sahajiyas. And Srila Prabhupada said, even if someone is Parakra Sahajiya, he is still higher than a Gyan Yogi. Now that is surprising. How could he be higher than a Gyan Yogi or a Mayavadi? because at least Srila Prabhupada instructs in his lectures that he has accepted Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And by continuously chanting, by continuously engage in devotional service, he will be purified, and soon he will understand that, Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is not so much worried by the show, but by the mood as how we serve. Because Lord Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardana. He understands the bhav, the feeling, the emotions, how, in what mood we are serving, right? So that is paramount. And as we continue to see, there is constantly some disturbance that comes in current times, but we have to be very patient, and we learn this by following the examples of Nityananda Prabhu, by following the examples of Acharya, by following the example set by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, that in this age we should try to improve the behavior, our behavior, because charity begins at home. Yet at the same time we should be very patient even towards the demons and give them an opportunity so that they can become devotees. This was a movement started by Srila Prabhupada, who said that simply by the chanting, so again, and he is propagating Gaurvani, right? Gaurvani Pacharine. So this movement was initially being propagated by Srila Prabhupada, but started and reinitiated again and again by the Acharyas, starting from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is none other than Krishna. So in Krishna Leela itself, Lord Krishna in Vraj Bhumi, he is killing all the demons, because actually, as we'll hear in the 10th canto, in the previous life they were devotees who committed some offenses, and they were cursed to become demons. Yet at the same time, even though we understand that aspect, we should also understand that Lord Krishna, he is absolute, right? So even if he does blesses someone, or even if he kills someone, both of them attain liberation. And this is another place Lord Krishna is given, it's compared with, again an analogy is given, that sun is compared with Krishna. Krishna cannot be compared, he's beyond comparison, yes. So we all, understand that just like sun, with its sunshine can, light up a nice pure place and makes it more pure, and even a place which is abominable, like some place there is urine, it evaporates the water from there and makes it pure as well. So again, similarly, when Lord Krishna, whatever action he performs, they are on the absolute platform, and whoever he is engaging in is blessed. So this is how we should understand, so that we can be in right consciousness, we can behave nicely in Krishna consciousness by engaging in devotional service, keeping the right mood of humility and tolerance, and amanina mardena, not expecting any respect from others, but ready to give all respect to others. We can continue to chant eternally, constantly, Hare Krishna. So here Maitreya Muni is describing, so Shukdev Goswami is telling this to Parikshit Maharaj. He is, reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, and here the description is coming that Viduji is not satisfied. So he is describing that Viduji is not satisfied. Why? Because in this particular chapter, in the previous chapter, it was described that Swayambhuva Manu asks Lord Brahma that if he could, with his endeavor and by the mercy of Lord Shri Krishna, if the earth can be taken from the bottom of the ocean and is re-established in its orbit. And at that time, Lord Brahma was contemplating. And then Lord appeared as Varahadev. From the nostril of Lord Brahma, he appeared to be just, like the upper part of the thumb. But then he suddenly grew like a mountain size, and he further grew so large that he was covering the Satyalok, Tapolok and Janalok. And by diving into the waters, he lifted the earth back. And then in the same chapter, Maitreya Muni is describing that he killed a Rakshasa, Hiranyaksha. So when he is describing this is most amazing, because Viduji had heard about the first incident where Swayambhuva Manu had asked. But he had not heard about an incident when Varahadev again appeared to kill a Rakshas, to kill a demon. So in the times of Swayambhuva Manu, Srila Prabhupada explains, and again the Acharyas identify from the bona fide scriptures, that it was the white boar incarnation of Lord Shri Krishna. So Varaharup, the Sukara Rupa that appeared, was white colored when he lifted the earth at the time of Swayambhuva Manvantara. So at the time, Swayambhuva Manu was the administrator of this universe. So during his administration, Manu's administration is also called Manvantara. So during that time, it was the white boar incarnation. Lord appeared as a white boar incarnation, and after lifting the earth and establishing in its orbit, he showed his bluish complexion. So he changed his complexion. So all the Brahmanas and all the devotees who were singing his glories, they immediately understood that, this is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also rode before diving into the waters, assuring them, yes, that I am accepting your prayers. So Lord gives us indications time and again in our life to understand that yes, He is present everywhere. This is the consciousness of Prahlad Maharaj. From him we learn that He is within and without. So within is within us. In our heart, Lord Krishna has expanded and is present as Paramatma, the Super Soul. And also Lord is outside because He is everywhere. Everything is coming from Him, and He has expanded Himself as Shirodakshai Vishnu. So He is even between every atom. Spaces between the atoms, not just in the atom, but also in the spaces between the atoms. So even the void is covered. So again, there is no place in this material world that Lord is not there. So He is there. We have to understand. We have to get the eyesight so that we can see Him everywhere. We understand when we look at the sun that yes, these are the eyes of the Lord, the sun and the moon. And so we feel blessed. Raso aham apsu kanteya. When we drink water, right? So from water comes taste. So we can appreciate Lord Shri Krishna, that He is the taste in water, so that our thirst is quenched, right? And in the scriptures it is given that Trishna, right, can be completely removed by Lord Krishna. So these various references are there. Sometimes people use these words and they try to copyright them. It's very funny that, it's all given in scriptures and you are trying to pick it up and just try to copyright. That should not be the attitude. This is again an effect of false ego that causes people to do such actions. So today we are going to learn how Maitreya Muni. Now Maitreya is son of Mitra. Mitra is one of the Adityas. Adityas means one son of Aditi. She is one of the wives of Kashyapa Muni, right? And in this case we are hearing about Diti and Kashyapa Muni. So there were 13 sisters, 13 daughters of Daksha. They were married to, Kashyapa Muni. So of them, the two sisters, they have been discussed in some summary. So one is an implication because we'll also hear that Yamraj is one of the Adityas as well. He's in the descendant of Aditi. No, it doesn't have to be son of Aditi, descendant of Aditi. That's what Aditya means. And Daityas mean that descendant of Diti. But Diti in this particular case, in the beginning of this chapter, as we hear, did not have a son, and that's why she was feeling poor. She was lamenting. She was in this, aggrievement. She was in this mood that she wants a son because all her sisters seem to have a son, right? Who are married to Kashyapa Muni. All of them seem to have sons or daughters, but she was still wanting a son, and so without a son or daughter, she was feeling that she was, poor compared to her sisters. So sometimes this relative feeling comes, and so she was approaching her husband. Now Maitreya Muni is addressing Vidurji, Mahatma Vidur, with various words. He is calling Mahatma Vidur as warrior, because Mahatma Vidur, he is asking to hear about the second occurrence and during the Chakshusha Manvantara. At the time, Chakshusha Manu, after Sambhuva Manu came Chakshusha Manu, he was the administrator of this universe. And how during that time, Lord appeared as Varahadev, Sukara Rupa, in the form of a wild boar, a red boar incarnation. And he didn't just lift the earth from the ocean, but also killed a demon, and the demon's name was Hiranyaksha. So Daityaraj Hiranyaksha was killed by red boar incarnation of Lord Shri Krishna. So Lord Krishna is Avatari, and these are the avatars, boar incarnations, Nrsimhadev incarnations, and so forth. So here we are understanding this very beautifully being described by Maitreya Muni, that, when he gave that description in the previous chapter, Vidurji became, curious to know why was and how this incident occurred, that this Rakshasa, Daityaraj Hiranyaksha, was killed by the red boar incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And sometimes people, they confuse themselves because they think that Lord Krishna is an incarnation of Vishnu. And when we ask which Vishnu, they get confused, right? Because in reality, the third chapter of the first canto is very nicely given. Ete chams kalaha pushna, ete chams kalaha pumsa Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Loke Mridayanti Yuge Yuge Ete chams kalaha pumsaha. So all these, Krishnastu Bhagwan Swayam, all these incarnations are portions or the plenary portions of Lord Shri Krishna. But Krishna to Bhagwan Swayam, that Lord Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indrari Vyakulam Loke. And wherever there are disturbances caused by the demons, right? Indrari, the enemy of Indra, right? Indra means the king of the demigods. Vyakulam Loke, Mridayanti Yuga Yuga. You advent in this material world millennium after millennium. So we hear about these wonderful, wonderful pastimes. And so, because Vidurji wanted to hear about a chivalrous activity, the chivalrous pastime of Lord appearing as red boar incarnation as Varahadeva, Lal, Sukar, Rupa, and he's fighting with Hiranyaksha. Again, we can look at the question somebody is asking to understand what kind of propensity, the interest they have, right? And a person has interest based on what attracts them. And here this chivalrous act of the Lord is attracting Vidurji. He wants to hear about it. So of course, he happens to be in the Kuru dynasty, right? He's son of Srila Kṛṣṇa Dvaipanya Vasudev, the seminal son of Vyasadeva. Yet at the same time in Kuru dynasty he is appearing, even though yes, his mother is a Shudrani, so he is a Shudra. So again, from that perspective, from the lineage perspective, but he is also incited because in reality he is a great Vidwan, he is a Mahatma, he is a great devotee. And of course, let us not remind you again that he is none other than Yamraj, who was cursed by Mandavya Muni or Mandukya Muni, sometimes called, to take birth as a Shudra. So again, even though he is covered in this form and a bodily form of a Shudra, but this living entity is a Mahajana. So again, you have to understand. So Maitreya Muni, he is glorifying Vidurji, calling him a warrior. He also calls him a king because Yamraj is the administrator. He, gives punishment to the human beings, not all the living entities, only human beings after their life, if they have not qualified themselves, perfected themselves to return back home, they are taken in front of Yamraj. And of course, Yamraj in heaven is called Dharmraj. So based on the pious activities, the living entities who have just passed their human life but not completely successfully completed the purpose of human birth, then they, for pious activities, are given some time in Swarglok, heavenly planets, and for bad activities, sinful activities, impious activities, they are sent to hell to suffer. This is a very simple arrangement set up by Maya Devi, and she is just following the instructions of Lord Shri Krishna. So Lord Krishna as a judge means again he is completely unattached. Similarly, Yamraj is completely unattached to the jurisdiction, to the ruling he is making. Yet at the same time, It is for our purification. So if a living entity is getting punishment for their sinful activities, their reactions are finishing up. And sometimes we get those reactions in this life itself, right? So, when we point a finger towards someone, 3 fingers are always pointing towards us. So similarly, we should understand that yes, we can only identify a mistake in others that we have in ourselves. Otherwise, we'll be completely ignorant of a mistake in others. So that makes us also humble to try to improve on a daily basis. Every minute, every second, we have an opportunity to improve ourselves. Such wonderful lessons we are getting from this, from Srimad Bhagavatam. And he is also, as a Kshatriya, right? He has this Yamraj as a Kshatriya. He also carries out his ruling with that mood to be just in his ruling. So he is also protecting, right? As Mahajanas, they are always seeking everyone they want. They are constantly praying that, my dear Lord, let every living entity become pure so that they can return back home. He is not so much attached to his seat, he is more attached to the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna. And he is also called hero, king, hero, and not just king but also a hero. Why? Because as a devotee, he is much stronger than Kashyapa Muni, as we'll hear this pastime where Kashyapa Muni, his wife, she's approaching. Kashyapa Muni is, making an oblation in the fire. And fire is said to be the tongue of Yajna Purusha. Yajna Purusha is Lord Vishnu, Lord Kṛṣṇa. So Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam, Lord Kṛṣṇa says in Bhagavad Gita that he is the beneficiary of all sacrifices. So when we make an oblation of grains and clarified butter, milk products in the fire, then we are actually offering it to the Lord. So the fire is the tongue of the Lord, and that, and we always end the mantras with Swaha. Remember? So when we say Swaha, Swaha happens to be the wife of Yajna Purusha. So we are giving our offerings as gifts to the mother, who then delivers it to the father. So of course, when a child gives something to the mother to give to the father cannot refuse it. So this is Lord's mercy and the mother's mercy. That's why when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, which is also part of sacrifice, that is the Yuga Dharma, the sacrifice of this age, we are actually calling out more to the mother so that we get mercy of father. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. So this also brings us to a very important point. We also understand that Lord is Bhavgahi Janardana. So when we are doing japa, we should do it. How should we do japa? In a mood of surrender. How should we do japa? In the mood of devotion, with love, with humility, asking for forgiveness for our past mistakes and seeking for redemption. So we basically want to purify ourselves. Just by chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we are making this plea at the lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Krishna to please engage us in their service, so that we, by their service, will be out of the clutches of Maya, the 3 modes of material nature, which constantly cause various kind of tribulations for us. What happens when we are in the modes of material nature? What kind of effects does it have? We become fearful, we become anxious, we are constantly disturbed, our mind fickles, we run after sense objects. We don't want to do this. That's why we attach ourselves to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Ramanji, Shri Shri Radha Govindji, Shri Shri Radha Gopinathji, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohanji. And just by holding on to their feet, automatically Lord Krishna, he instructs Mahamaya to leave us. So we automatically, just by attaching ourselves, one process detaches ourselves. So we don't have to go through the processes which are 2-step processes in other yoga systems. Because in Karma Yoga, you have to perform your activities, and with this mode that yes, everything is meant for Lord Shri Krishna, then make an offering. So again, to purify our senses, yet at the same time it can be Mishra, right? because we may have some meditation towards the sense objects. So it becomes mixed. In the case of a Gyan Yoga, first you have to get Gyan, you have to get the knowledge, only then you can engage in Samadhi. So again, to be able to come to the level of meditation. In case of Ashtanga Yoga, right, we have to carry out various kind of processes, Yam, Niyam, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Asana and so forth, finally going on to Samadhi. But in Krishna consciousness, the process is onefold. We don't have to drop something. So again, sometimes we are trying to do, like, to pick up this, which is lying here, we have to drop this to pick this up. It's not a twofold process. In case of Krishna consciousness, it's just, holding on to the lotus feet of Shri Radha Ramanji, Shri Radha Krishna, we can simply attain perfection. So this is where we learn in Krishna consciousness by simply attaching ourselves to the lotus feet of Shri Radha Krishna. All other things, they are completely washed off. So here, continuing the description, being encouraged by the inquiry of Mahatma Vidur, Maitreya Muni is describing that once when Kashyapa Muni was making an oblation in the fire to satisfy the Lord, Diti, the younger sister of Aditi, she approached him being inflicted by the sex desire. So again, she was feeling very strong desires, and she was approaching at the wrong time. And even though she was approaching at the wrong time, it was something that, Kashyapa Muni, he tried to ward off. But he did not use strong words. He did not try to, as a husband, try to, instruct her to control herself. He was, trying to cover with various words, still encouraging, somewhat, showing that he is, interested in that subject matter. So again, this is where that incident happens, where Diti is able to approach her husband and fulfill her desire. And this is where Maitreya Muni is calling Vidurji as hero, because Vidurji as a devotee, as a soul surrendered at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, is much more stronger. So this is a glorification of devotees who can easily overcome such desires when being incited even by their wives. So again, when a wife approaches her husband provides the protection, yet as a devotee husband, he actually provides a much higher level of protection, not just the physical protection or emotional protection. A husband is responsible to provide spiritual protection by engaging the wife, by engaging the children in Krishna consciousness. And that is the higher purpose, that everyone should be looking to engage their loved beings, because charity begins at home. If we make all our family members, as devotees, and we all engage in the service of Krishna, then automatically this world, our home itself, will become a place of sadhus, where sadhus reside, the devotees reside, and will always be in sadhu sangha. What can be better than that, right? So for this, to become a reservoir of all good qualities, we have to live regulated life. This is why, to be able to have right consciousness, we want to take advantage, because time is a material energy. Yes, Lord Krishna says, time I am. So you cannot separate the energetic and the energy. आप शक्तिमान से शक्ति सेपरेट नहीं कर सकते. क्यों? क्योंकि अगर आपने शक्ति सेपरेट कर दी तो शक्तिमान नहीं रहा, राइट? एंड अगर आपने शक्तिमान को सेपरेट कर दिया तो शक्ति किसके थ्रू मैनिफेस्ट होगी, राइट? इट नीड्स अ मीडिया. So the Lord, He is Shaktiman, He is all potent, He has unlimited potencies. And one of His external potencies, as is described by the Acharyas, is time. And He shows this influence of time. And every day we see the influence of time, and the three modes of material nature, they act accordingly. So during the Brahma Muhurat time, mode of goodness is in high influence. And mode of goodness is like, we as living entities, when we fall on a dry grass, immediately the grass catches fire. That is an analogy of mode of goodness. So mode of goodness, we have an opportunity to again reawaken the dormant devotion in our heart, right? We all already have devotion in our heart, But in the mode of goodness, it catches the spark, immediately sets everything on fire, and we can become again fully conscious, fully purified. While in the mode of passion, that is like the spark is falling on a ground, so it becomes covered, right? It doesn't have the same effect. It loses its potency over a period of time. It gets covered. Its potency is not lost, but its potency is covered, conditioned, thinking I am this body, and one runs after name, fame, and glories. And what happens when the spark falls on water or on a wet grass? Of course, it immediately, gets covered. Immediately, its potency is immediately covered. So that is what happens in the mode of ignorance. One becomes lazy, one becomes, manda. He doesn't, again, lazy, and he becomes less intelligent. He becomes, sleepy. He is not engaged in any action whatsoever. And he procrastinates heavily. And that is the effect, Kala Shudra Sambhava. That has been said by the Acharyas in the scriptures also, is being again and again reminding us that this Kali age means only Shudras are Sambhava. So everyone is born as a Shudra in Kali age. And what are the characteristics of people born in Kali age? Manda Sumanda Matyo Mand Bhagya Praduta. But again, before that is Prayena Alpayusha Sabhya Kalavasmin Yuge Jana Manda Sumanda Matyo Mand Bhagya Praduta. So Prayena Alpayusha Sabhya. So again, in this age, men have short life, Alpayu, right? We can only live for 100 years max, It's not an average anymore. It's like more like a maximum. And over the period of time in Kali age, further will reduce that when the time will come that people will only live for 20 to 25 years. Can you imagine? So we are living, so we have to be very conscious of how we are spending our time, and we have to immediately cross over this ocean of naysayers in this life. So take to Kṛṣṇa consciousness. And Kalavasmin Yugejana, and they are quarrelsome by nature. So people, they try to pick up quarrel with anyone. That's why devotees, we understand that quarrel, can take away our precious time. We have very limited time. Even the 24 hours in a day feels short for a devotee, because we want to engage, for millions and millions of years, but we only have 100 years as the age in serving Lord Shri Krishna. That's why Acharya Rupa Goswami is saying that he wants, crores of tongues to chant Lord Krishna's names, and so many more crores of ears to hear his glories, to hear his name from activities, pastimes. So again, we hear that this should be the desire. Every moment, every second should be used in Kṛṣṇa consciousness for our purification, so that we don't have to see Yamraj, we don't have to again suffer in this material world. Rather, instead of being influenced by the material modes, we want to engage constantly in serving the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna. So, when Diti approaches her husband Kashyapa Muni, she is saying, my dear husband, I feel poor. I feel, I have this desire to have a son. And she is begging her husband Kashyapa Muni. And she is asking, and Kashyapa Muni is son of Marichi, that he should, be with her so that she can get a son. She can get a child. She wants to beget a child. She doesn't say whether she wants a son or a daughter. She wants a child. She wants to, experience motherhood. So that way she will feel that she is rich, right? So this is where sometimes people, they look at it that, okay, somebody has 2 sons, 3 sons, 4 sons. They look at this way. What is important is what kind of sons we have. That is also very important. What kind of a person we are making them, because we are the role model for our children. So if we set up nice examples, then our children will follow those nice examples and will become, good citizens. They will become friends of all living entities, especially when we engage in Kṛṣṇa consciousness and we engage our children in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. So this is where she was feeling poorer than the co-wives. And the co-wives of Kashyapa, many of them, the 12 other co-wives of sage Kashyapa, were her own sisters, real sisters, daughters of Daksha. So Daksha had 16 daughters. Of them, 13 were married to Kashyapa Muni. And this is where it is described by Srila Prabhupada in the purport that Daksha is like in the Vedic times, a father would ask their daughter who they would like to marry. Of course, not giving them full independence. They would like to see if the daughter marries a person who is with the right consciousness, who is an elevated personality. So daughters would express, and then sometimes, daughters cannot express in front of father. So father takes help of his parents, because grandchildren and grandparents, they have a special affinity towards each other, right? So grandchildren sometimes more openly share such thoughts with the grandparents, and grandparents are able to ask these questions, and grandchildren can openly share their feelings with the grandparents. So this is where sometimes parents approach grandparents to see if they know, if what the grandchildren would like. So again, here he would definitely have approached Lord Brahma, but again, the sons of Daksha, because Daksha is son of Brahma, he is the main Prajapati in this. So progeny was started, the creative process was started by Lord Brahma, and Daksha is one of the Prajapati. Daksha also means one who is an expert in increasing the progeny, in the creative impetus in this world. So again, he has married 13 of his daughters with, they are married to Kashyapa Muni. And so Kashyapa Muni, from 12 of his daughters, he has begotten children. Yet at the same time, Diti was the only one who did not have any child. And so, being inflicted on her feelings, she is feeling that she is tormented by this desire, just like an elephant is breaking away a bamboo sticks, but in this case ganna. Ganna is जो गन्ने की टहनियाँ होती है ना, so that like bamboo sticks is being broken by an elephant. So a bamboo stick is very weak when it comes to an elephant. It's like a child is breaking a straw. It's as simple as that. So she is feeling completely helpless. And of course, for protection, she is approaching her husband. And at that time, first Kashyapa Muni, he gives 3 interesting varieties of reason. First, he is saying that you should not approach because this is not the due time, right? It is unregulated time. She is still inciting him by saying that actually, this is your duty because you have to increase progeny in this world. So he is feeling defeated by her argument when he is giving this argument, and he is not able to control himself. And he, even though he is making oblation in the fire to satisfy Lord Vishnu, Lord Kṛṣṇa, he happens to be a devotee of Lord Shiva. And so he gives this in a second reasoning. He is trying to pacify her by, encouraging her. Now, how can somebody pacify someone by encouraging them? When they are feeling that they are not capable of doing this, so they say, maybe you can, from yourself, from your inner strength, try to control yourself, right? So he's saying that we, as a husband, are very grateful to you as a wife because you protect us. And there is a very nice example that has been given, that just like a commander of a fort will, protect the fort from, intruders, the, other outside intruders, similarly, wife is like a commander, and you should be protecting the fort, which is the husband in this case. So he is inciting her to somehow find that strength in her. And he's also saying another beautiful analogy that, you as a wife, so just like somebody who wants to cross an ocean takes to the help of a, vessel, sea vessel, right, a boat or a ship, to be able to cross over the ocean. So similarly, you are that boat who can help a husband, so a wife as a boat who can help a husband to cross over this ocean of nations. So he's showing his inabilities here. That's why Viduji is called hero, or we also hear that Haridas Thakur, Srila Haridas Thakur, who is Namacharya, he was glorified by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. he was actually, when he was young and he was chanting 300,000 names of Lord Shri Krishna, he was chanting, 192 japamalas every day, 64 times 3. So one of the jamidar in the village, he became envious of Srila Haridas Thakur. People become envious in material consciousness for whatever reason, because everyone was respecting Haridas Thakur as a devotee more than this jamidar. Now, sometimes in material mindset, people don't realize that a king is respected in his kingdom, but a sadhu, a devotee of the Lord, is respected everywhere. No matter where he goes, he is respected. That is just the glories of the Lordship, that he wants his devotees to be glorified and devotees want Lord to be glorified. So similarly, even though Srila Prabhupada, he left Vrindavan, he came to the West, Lord Krishna was seeking to glorify Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada was constantly glorifying Lord Shri Krishna. So this is a loving exchange between a devotee and the Lordship. Shri Radha Krishna and the devotee is the Bhakta. They are constantly in this loving exchange trying to glorify each other. So similarly, we glorify the Acharyas, we glorify Srila Prabhupada, because by pleasing a son of a rich man, we can become favorite of the rich man. So similarly, we can get the blessings, we can get the favor of Shri Radha Krishna. Isn't that easy? That is very easy. Krishna consciousness is very easy to understand, very easy to implement, only when we are covered with this maya, with this doubtful mindset, we find it difficult to execute. There is very interesting thing that we observe. Many times people approach us because everyone is trying to purify themselves, right? But still in the clutches of Maya. So they are saying that this is very difficult. But every time we hear Srila Prabhupada's lecture, there is constantly one phrase keeps coming out. Srila Prabhupada is always saying, what is the difficulty? Even if you are facing demons in this life, externally and even internally sometimes, you take to the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna. What is the difficulty? If things are not going right, rely back an engagement in devotional service. If your mind is disturbed, take to the chanting, take a pause, time out, call a time out, say, I'm going to chant a couple of rounds of japa, taking shelter at the lotus feet of Shri Radha Krishna, and just chant the japa, and suddenly in the midst of all those tribulations, in the midst of all that struggle, we start smiling. We get the strength from the all-strong Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna. And we understand the lesson that we are learning in that situation. It is not that the situation will change. It is we who will get internal transformation. We need transformation so that we can act justly, we can act correctly in every situation. And such incidents in Srimad Bhagavatam teach us that in material consciousness, people may, they can twist, they can rationalize. Rational plus lies is rationalize. They can rationalize to meet their material motives. But when we look at the Shastras, when we consult with the sadhus, when we engage in devotional service, when we are constantly in sadhu sangha, we can understand how every situation should be dealt with proper intelligence, with patience, with humility, with tolerance. Yet the enthusiasm in devotional service encourages us, it empowers us to be able to become strong, to live in this world and pass through this ocean of nations quickly, so that we can attain the purpose of this life, attain Krishna Prema, the goal of this life. Sambandha Abhideya Prayojana. Sambandha is our relationship with Lord Shri Krishna, that He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, He is the Supreme Enjoyer, and we are enjoyed. Jivera Suruphoya Krishnera Nityadas, we are the servant. So Abhideya is the process. We engage in the 9 process of devotional service, and then also reading and writing, so that we are, on our journey. We are walking on our journey, not just staying on the side, saying that this is our relationship. I am, a spirit soul, and so I am Brahman. No, Aham Brahmasmi, yes, I am Brahman, but he is Parabrahman. So we want to reach that Parabrahman. We want to engage in that loving service. So by engagement in devotional service, we attain the love. That is the goal, prayojana. Goal of this life is to attain love of Godhead. And when we attain love of Godhead, what do? We further engage in devotional service. It's not that now we give up devotional service, because chanting of the holy name is the process and as well as the goal. And it is when the Bhakti Lata Bij has crossed over this material universe and is resting in Golok Vrindavan at the lotus feet of Shri Radha Krishna, it bears this fruit of love, right? And this, when engaging in devotional service, we taste this fruit of love. So we continue to become stronger, we continue to become pure, we continue to become more humble, we continue to automatically become more tolerant, we all continue to become, suitable in an environment where we can be constantly serving Shri Radha Krishna. So very easy process. Yet at the same time, people give this response, what can we do? It is so difficult, this stuff is hard, because we are not looking at it with the proper consciousness. If we look at it, how simple this is. Even a child can raise his hand and chant, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Rāma Rāma, Hare Hare, and can very simply collect spiritual wealth, which is love of Shri Radha Krishna. Goloka Prema Dhana, Hari Nama Sankirtana. So, why is there so many questions about, difficulties in Krishna consciousness? There is no difficulty. What is the difficulty? Right? Just like Srila Prabhupada used to say. And here, he is asking her, the second category of reasons he is giving is like, my dear wife, we can never repay you for all the wonderful things that you are doing, how you are taking care of. Now, Srila Prabhupada gives a very nice instruction in the purport with respect to this statement. He is not telling lies, but he is also showing his inability in making her, surrender her thought, thinking that this is inappropriate time. She is doing an irregulated practice by approaching her husband at the time of sunset. Sunrise and sunset are the times that we should be engaged in devotional service, not in sense gratification. But she is afflicted. She is being disturbed by the three modes of material nature, especially the mode of passion, that she is approaching her husband with this mode. And he is not finding it easy for him. So now he switches over, he's saying that even this is not working. Actually, she is getting more encouraged that now that she is the commander, and a commander is supposed to protect the fort, but this commander wants to attack the fort, right? So he is thinking. So Srila Prabhupada gives very nice purport, where his purpose, of course, always transcendental, teaching us such amazing lessons. What is the lesson in this particular purport when the second category of reason is being used by Kashyapa Muni? Srila Prabhupada says that, of course, there are four social orders, right? And then there are four spiritual orders. So there are four ashramas: Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. Only in Grahastha ashram, it is possible for a man and woman to be together in marriage, and they can have progeny, they can beget children. So this is where a facility has been provided so that they don't get afflicted and fall down into hellish conditions. But in Brahmacharya, Vanaprastha and Sannyas, if one is afflicted with such desires, then one will fall down into hellish conditions. So there is very little hope for such a person, right? So what is the advantage of Grahastha ashram? Because it is a perfect arrangement, right? Where a person can satisfy the senses, but those senses have to be satisfied in a regulated manner. Only to beget children one should have such desires. So that is, so that it's a great service. Again, Lord Krishna, what does he want? He wants the living entities to go back home, back to Godhead. And one of the way for living entities to go back home, back to Godhead, is to get that rare birth of human life, right? Get a human birth. So as husband and wife, minimum 64 rounds should be chanted before, and then they should follow the proper samskara, garbhdhan samskara. So it is actually a celebration when husband and wife want to meet together to beget a child. So that garbhdhan samskara, 64 rounds should be done, and then they should do. But here, Diti is approaching at an irregulated time in an irregular way, in the middle of his puja, in the middle of his fire sacrifice that he is performing and making oblations, when he is chanting the mantras. So that is the time to engage in devotional service. So that should not be done. But Srila Prabhupada says, but one as a brahmachari, when he is taught very nicely, if he is very strong in Krishna consciousness, if he is very strong in engaged in devotional service, then such a brahmachari with a chaste wife, when he has a faithful girl, when he is married to a faithful girl, that would be a perfect combination. So faithful chaste wife, right? They and a brahmachari taken to Grihastha ashram would be a perfect couple to engage in devotional service while carrying out their prescribed duties. So what is the combination? So there is constitutional position, Sanatana Dharma, and then there is Swadharma, the prescribed duties. So together, when they are aligned, the boat can ride very speedily across this ocean of nations. So what is the combination that can help in Grihastha ashram? For a husband and wife, both to be devotees, both to live regulated life, because that is brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is to living a regulated life. And then in marriage as an arrangement, when Lord Krishna says to beget children in a married life, even that desire is Krishna conscious desire, to beget children. So he is telling that in Bhagavad Gita. So following his instructions, husband and wife, they can beget children, Krishna conscious children, and engage those children in service of Shri Radha Krishna. There is a beautiful statement from Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was Ajivan Brahmachari. He never married, right? And yet at the same time, he made this statement which is shocking to many of the brahmacharis. They say, how could he say that? Because he is teaching us by this instruction that we are supposed to surrender to the will of God. If Lord Krishna wants us to have children who can all be Krishna conscious children, then we should even surrender that thought. He said that he was ready to have 100 sons if they could all be Krishna conscious, 100% Krishna conscious. So that, because this is in the mission, Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. This is Anukul, this is favorable in Krishna consciousness. So if we can beget children who are 100% Krishna conscious, who are pure devotees, they are constantly engaged in devotional service, then that is favorable. So Grihastha, but at the same time, Grihastha don't just perform this, giving other living entities an opportunity to become devotees and attain the purpose of this life and break out the cycle. The main miseries in this material world is not one is rich or poor, or one is ugly and not beautiful. Rather, the true miseries in this material world are Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. So, birth, death, old age and disease, these are the miseries, these are what we are caught in. So one can be very happy in Krishna consciousness and live eternally, because they are not living on the bodily platform. How can one live eternally in Krishna consciousness? Because Krishna consciousness is at our true level, at our eternal nature, at the Jivera Swarup Hoya Krishna Nityadas, that we as living entities are eternal. The body may change, right? We change our clothes every day. So just like that, we change our bodies. In due course of time, we'll change this body. We'll give up this body, take another body. But we want to take spiritual body. Because by engaging in Lord's service, attaining the purpose of this life, the purpose of this human birth, we can go back home, back to Godhead, and constantly engage in devotional service, having the loving exchange. That will make us happy. After 75 years, more than 75 years, the longest running research of Harvard Business School, they have now recognized that happiness comes from relationship. And we, Acharyas explain that it comes from loving relationships. That's why Srila Prabhupada ne ISKCON society ko establish kiya, right? Because he wanted to propagate, he wanted to encourage the 6 loving exchanges. Dadati pratigrahanati guhyamakyati prichati bunjate bhojate chava sadvita priti lakshanam. So these are loving exchanges. What are the 6 symptoms of loving exchanges? Dadati pratigrahanati, giving of gifts and accepting gifts, right? So the gifts that devotees give is like, we give the gifts in Krishna consciousness, something to encourage others to become Krishna conscious, and accepting gifts from others so that we, encourage them as well as feel encouraged in Krishna consciousness. Guhyam akhyate prichati. So they inquire about the confidential subject matters, and the most confidential is Rajvidya Rajgoyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyakshvavagmam Dharmam Susukam Kartum Agvyayam. Lord Krishna says in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna that this knowledge of Krishna consciousness, this knowledge of the Sambandha Gyan, this relationship between living entities and Shri Radha Krishna as our parents, father and mother, this devotional service, this engagement in devotional service, the Bhakti Yoga, is Raj Vidya. It is the king of all knowledge. Raj Guhyam, it is the secret of all secrets. So when we are talking about confidential matters, we definitely want to talk about Radha Krishna, the glories of his name, form, activities, pastimes. We want to glorify them constantly. Pavitram, it is purifying, that we get purified and the person who is hearing also gets purified. Idam Uttamam, and it is the best. No matter which category you look at it, it is the best. So look at from that perspective. Pratyakshvavagmam dharmam. So we can directly perceive, we can see the improvement in our behavior when we are interacting. Right? Dharmam. Idam uttamam. So again, we should be looking, and it is performed susukham kartum avyayam. So it is performed in a joyful mode, in an enjoyable mode, with happiness, experiencing transcendental bliss and avyayam, and it can be performed constantly, eternally. One will never get tired. So that is the mood we should be chanting. That is the mood how we should be performing devotional service. That is the mood we should be seeking to please Lord Shri Krishna for his pleasure. So even there, Grihasthas, they are carrying out these activities, but also another responsibility of Grihastha is, of course, sacrifice, charity and austerity should never be given up. So austerity is by following the regulated principles, living a regulated life, chanting minimum 16 rounds, and also engaging others in congregational chanting. And that also requires, sharing what we have. So charity is being performed more in family life, because only in family life one is looking after those 4 religious aspects of dharma, arth, kama, moksha: religiosity, economic development, enjoyment, and moksha. So in case of enjoyment, we are seeking devotional service, enjoyment in Krishna consciousness, enjoyment while engaged in devotional service, the 9 process of devotional service to please Lord Shri Krishna. So everything is dovetailed in the case of a grihastha, because if we seek enjoyment for our sense gratification, then we become graha medhi, not grihastha anymore. So that causes fall down. So regulated life is very important, and it is very simple to follow if you have constant support from everyone, and the best support comes from the spiritual masters, our acharyas, as well as sadhus and the granthas, the bona fide scriptures. So this chapter, all these are being described so nicely. And so in brahmacharya, one does not engage in economic development. So they are relying on parents or other part of the society to help them. In vanaprastha, one is leaving the house. So that's like a retired life. So they have no chance of making economic development. And sannyas, of course, they are fully, relying on others to provide for them. So it is only grihastha life that can provide, sustenance to all the other 3 varnas. But, in the wrong consciousness, how do people behave when sadhu comes? They say, leave. They don't even open the door at times. So that is a sorry state, because this is the sign of a graha medhi. So a sadhu wants to help others, but at the same time he is rejected by others because of their, miserly mindset. Manda sumanda matyo. Again, that's laziness, sumanda matyo, less intelligence. Manda bhagya. And they are unlucky when they reject an opportunity to hear from sadhu, when they, reject a wonderful opportunity to get purified and to experience transcendental bliss. Such is the state. While we devotees understand how important it is to glorify Lord Shri Krishna, to hear Shravanam, most potent process of devotional service. And so, a grihastha supports all other ashrams. So charity is very important because it actually purifies the grihastha, a householder. And here Kashyapa Muni giving the reasons that somehow you should find. Now he is saying that she is not able to find any strength. So he goes to the third category. But there is something very interesting that we learn here. Kashyapa Muni he is a worshipper of Lord Shiva. And now he is telling his wife that, Lord Shiva, he comes out during the dusk time. He comes out and he is surrounded by Bhut Ganas, right? His body is covered, even though he is Ashutosh, he is easily pleased, but he is also, his associates are all these Bhut Ganas and all these Pet, Pishach and all that. They don't have material body. They have, they don't have like the gross body. So sometimes he is so compassionate that if he sees, a grihastha engaged in sensual desires to beget a children, he is merciful towards his pretas also, the Bhut Ganas. So he, makes that Bhut Gana get birth in the womb of the wife in that case during the dusk time, if they are mating, husband and wife are mating. So that way the Bhut Gana will get a gross body and so have an opportunity to go back home. But then Bhut Gana, because of its nature, causes all kind of nonsense. All the demoniac Rakshasa propensity comes within. That's why also it is recommended not at dusk time, late night, mid-afternoon, but not at dusk time one should be engaged in such activities. So this is where he is reminding her that, Lord Shiva. But how is he addressing Lord Shiva? He is a worshipper of Lord Shiva. But then he is saying, who is a younger son of your husband. Now sometimes it's very perplexing that why? Because this is material consciousness. Everybody wants to show that they are better than others. So here he is worshipping Lord Shiva. He is a worshipper of Lord Shiva. So Srila Prabhupada says there are two kinds of devotees of Lord Shiva. One kind is that they just want to enjoy in this material world, so gross materialist. Kashyapa Muni is much elevated than that. He is not a gross materialist seeking sense enjoyment, sensual, engagement to enjoy in this material world for his sensual pleasure. He is not looking for that. But that is one category of devotees who worship Lord Shiva. And what's the other category? Ones who want to merge into Lord Shiva and become Lord Shiva. So they chant this mantra, Shiva Aham, that I am Shiva. So they try to, Lord Shiva, later on we'll hear, during the Samudra Manthan, halahal poison, it came out. And Lord Vishnu asked the demigods to approach Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva, he drank all that poison, kept it in his throat. He did not drink it. He kept it in his throat. And because of the influence of this poison, halahal, his throat became blue. That's why he is also glorified as Nilkantha. So copying his actions, sometimes people, they try to use that as a reason to drink ganja, to smoke ganja and other abominable drugs. And they say we are followers of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva did not drink it for his enjoyment. These people who are drinking ganja is for their sensual enjoyment, but they are taking name of Lord Shiva. So such people, they face hellish conditions. While Lord Shiva, he is showing by his example that how merciful he is towards all living entities. He is Bhola. He forgets himself when he is worshipping Lord Krishna. He is Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. He is the topmost Vaishnava. So all the Vaishnava, we worship Lord Shiva as a devotee of Lord Shri Krishna, the topmost devotee of Lord Shri Krishna. So that is how he should be glorified. That is how he should be worshipped. But people in the material consciousness, they are worshipping him incorrectly. But Kashyapa Muni is calling him as his younger brother. This is also material consciousness, as Acharya has explained, because everybody wants to show that they are better than others, even better than the one they are praying to. So how can he be? He is not saying that he is my Tau, he is the elder brother of my father. Well, Kashyapa Muni is son of Marichi, who is born from the mind of Lord Brahma. Lord Shiva is Rudra, who is born from the anger. So he is anger personified. He is born before Marichi is born. So he should be considered, if we are looking from the birth perspective, an elder brother of the father of Kashyapa Muni. He is the elder brother of Marichi, and Marichi happens to be father of Kashyapa Muni. But instead of saying he's my Tau, he's my uncle, he's saying he's my younger brother, because Lord Shiva is married to Sati Devi, and Sati happens to be the youngest sister of Diti, the younger sister of Diti. So she was the youngest daughter of Daksha. So he is trying to find reasons so that he can say, I am bigger and better than even Lord Shiva. So he is identifying this, and this tells us that this is material consciousness where one, wants to glorify, not take the humble position, but also wants to feel proud inside. And this is the propensity we should give up. We should understand that Jivera Surupaya Kṛṣṇa Nityadas. And how can we come to this state, right consciousness? By following the third verse given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Trādapi sunichena tarurapi sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Becoming more humble than the grass on the street, more tolerant than the tree, ready to give all respect to others, manadena, amanina, not expecting any respect for ourselves. We can continue to chant, because that is Nityadas, Kṛṣṇa Nityadas. So our service is our complete activity. All our activities should be as devotional service. Everything should be performed. Even Arjuna, he was incited, Mama Smarana Yuddhyacha. Lord Kṛṣṇa tells him that remembering me, stand up and fight. Why? Because Arjuna has to use all his activities, all his skills, even his anger in Krishna consciousness, to kill everyone on the battlefield at Kurukshetra. And sometimes people say, foolish people say, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, that why is Krishna present on this battlefield as a charioteer? Because they don't like him. They have this, they're so covered in their conditioning, they're so covered that even the pure thing, just like we said, the people who are inflicted with jaundice, they even consider ganne ka juice or a sweet candy as bitter. So Lord Krishna is all auspicious, he is all benefiting, he is Mukunda, he is the giver of liberation. So in the battlefield, everyone, whoever is dying, there is a benediction that they see Lord Krishna and they will return back home, back to Godhead. But foolish people, they say, why is Lord Krishna even present on the battlefield? So that is the foolishness of general populace. We should not take to that foolishness. We should simply understand that, Lord Shiva is a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. He is the topmost devotee of Lord Krishna, and so he is glorified. He is also considered one of the Mahajanas. Swayambhur Narado Shambhu. Swayambhur is Lord Brahma. Devashi Narad. Narad means one who can deliver Narayan to us, not as a commodity, but by enlightening us. And Shambhu is Lord Shiva. So he is also a Mahajana, and he is the topmost devotee of Lord Shri Krishna. So here we can understand. How can we understand that we should always be humble? By engaging in Krishna consciousness, by constantly, doing Shavaram, the most potent form of devotional service, with the right mood, that we are Nityadas, we are eternal servant. We should not try to become master, because that is not favorable. And that is why we have to live a regulated life, because that, in regulated life, we will become happy, we will have loving exchanges. And Bhakti Tirth Maharaj, His Holiness Srila Bhakti Tirth Maharaj used to say that when we interact with someone, we should interact with so much love, with so much compassion, with so much humility, with so much surrender, that, understanding that the success of my Krishna consciousness, the success of my life depends on this interaction. That should be the mood. So again, we may see demons coming and attacking us time and again, but we, should be very polite, because they are hearing Hare Krishna Mahamantra. They will get purified, and one day, Lord Krishna will bestow mercy on them, and they will become devotee of Lord Shri Krishna. So here, after seeing that all his attempts have failed, even telling about Lord Shiva, he is not successful. So he gives up and he, sleeps with her at a secluded place. So at that time, afterwards, he takes bath and he chants his mantras. And at that time, he is somewhat upset, right? Because he did not do the right thing, right? This is what happens. Sometimes when we do the wrong thing, we have this guilty consciousness. And this is very funny that many times we hear of such stories that a thief who was somewhat, conscious of his bad activity, he goes to steal something, and after stealing something, now he's repenting, why did I steal it? And then he goes to place it back, and that's when he's caught. That's when people catch him when he's trying to correct his mistake. And at that time, he's thinking, why did I try to correct my mistake? Right? But actually, he's getting purified by making that attempt to correct his mistake. So here, Kashyapa Muni, he's now, he's repenting. And this repentance is also good, as described by the Acharyas. When we are feeling sorry for the mistake and we want to apologize for our mistake, like today, even though it was Zoom, I happen to have put one devotee outside the japa session, so I apologize for that, right? That will be purified. And then we should not just apologize, not be in a sorry state, but we should make correction. A simple correction is that when we make such a mistake, we realize that, okay, we cannot stop demons from coming, but at the same time, they have an opportunity of purification. This is the glories of Lord Shri Krishna. We, of course, want to be very conscious not to offend a devotee. So we'll set up we'll delete the whole series, we'll set up a brand new series so that we'll share that new series with the devotees and be more conscious, not to remove people, but send them to waiting room, right? So that way, if we do make a mistake, then we can bring the devotees back if we make a mistake and we don't block them by mistake. So again, there are always ways we can correct. And this intelligence comes to us from Lord Shri Krishna, Parusham Rishu. He says, I am the ability in man. So there is always a solution. The solution we can find only when we surrender at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna in a humble mode, in a tolerant mode. And we don't take offenses from others. We simply, glorify Lord Shri Krishna that even he is so attractive that even not just the Mahatmas, but also the demons get attracted to him. And they seek purification knowingly or unknowingly. And which is glorious. This is the glory of Lord Shri Krishna and his devotees, Srila Prabhupada and others. So here, after she sees her husband and now she is also feeling guilty conscious, so at that time she starts praying that maybe Lord Shiva, who can quickly destroy the child in my womb, she knows that she is pregnant, but she is saying that maybe he will be so merciful because he is Ashutosh, he is easily pleased. He will be so merciful to, bless me instead, to allow this child to be there. Maybe he will not get upset. Maybe the Supreme Personality of Godhead will not get upset because of this irregulated behavior of mine, because of the weakness of heart. Maybe I will still get their mercy. So she is repenting and she is asking for forgiveness and she is praying. So all three aspects are there. So when Kashyapa Muni, he sees his wife Diti praying in this mood, he tells her that yes, you will actually bear not one son, two sons. You will have twins. So what happened? In the womb, in her womb, so this is where sometimes in the material consciousness people misunderstand. So there Acharyas reveal, in the scriptures it's revealed, Hiranyakashipu was first conceived. Then Hiranyaksha was conceived next. But when they came out from her womb, when they took birth, Hiranyaksha came out first and then Hiranyakashipu came out. And it is by the mystic yoga process that Kashyapa Muni was able to identify that Hiranyakashipu, even though he came out later, he was conceived first, so he is the elder brother and Hiranyaksha is the younger brother. Jai, the Dwarpal of Lord Krishna, as we'll be hearing, I'm giving you some glimpse of the future, is a devotee, but his curse, so he takes birth as Hiranyakashipu, and Vijay, the other doorkeeper, the Dwarpal of Lord Vishnu, because of the curse, he takes birth as Hiranyaksha. So that's their first birth as demons. But their father is a Shiv Bhakta and mother is daughter of Daksha, who is son of Lord Brahma. He is the chief Prajapati among the Prajapatis. So here we hear that how Kashyapa Muni, he is telling that your sons, they will be like Rakshasas. So Daityas means descendants of Diti. Rakshasas are people who cause all kind of tribulation. Now the moment she hears that they will be Rakshasas, yet at the same time he is saying that they would, general populace, they will be causing so much violence on general populace, and they would be, all the sadhus, all the devotees, they will become morose, and they will be, looking at the activities of these two sons of yours, the twins, and your sons, they will violate many ladies in their life, and they would be very materialistic. They will always be seeking, sleep and be merry kind of mindset. So just seeking sense enjoyment, and they will cause havoc in this universe. However, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, he would advent in this world and he would kill them. So now hearing this, first she was, feeling more morose and more sorry that my sons will have such a life. But hearing that they will be delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Krishna, who will advent in this world, he will take avatar, and he will be the one. She knows that Lord is all auspicious. So even if somebody is blessed or somebody is killed, both personalities attain the goal of life. They are able to return back home, back to Godhead. So she is happy to hear that they would not be cursed by the Brahmanas, they would be delivered by Lord Vishnu himself in his avatar. So they will be able to attain the purpose of this life. So she is very intelligent from that perspective. But see, hearing is something and seeing and experience is something else. So when these two sons are destroyed, right, Hiraksha is destroyed by the Varahadev during the Chakshusha Manvantara. And similarly, Nrsimhadev appears to kill Hiranyakashipu. After that, she becomes so sad that she takes the vow to kill Indra, because to protect Indra, Lord had appeared. And Indra happens to be the son of her, the 11th son of her older sister Aditi. That's why Aditi's 12 sons are called Adityas, and also their descendants are called Adityas. So here we are hearing similarly like Daityaraj, Prahlad Maharaj, Daityaraj Bali Maharaj, because they are the king among the Daityas, the sons, descendants of Ditis. So again, from that perspective, we hear how, hearing is one thing, but experiencing is completely something else. So here she is hearing it and she is feeling satisfied in her heart. And now she is continuing to repent and she is glorifying that I am so happy to hear and I am so at peace to hear that they will be delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And since she is in a prayerful mood, Kashyapa Muni is actually wanting to reveal something very interesting. She is saying that actually the son of your son, your grandson, would be a great devotee of the Lord, and all the sadhus, all the devotees, they would be following his example. They would be considering, so Prahlad Maharaj, whose son of Hiranyakashipu, is glorified here. And this is where he is glorified that he is one of the Mahajanas. Swayam Bhuranada Doshambhu Kumaro Kapilo Manu Prahlado Janako Bhishmo Balivaya Sakirvayam. So Prahlad Maharaj's name comes. And Prahlad Maharaj's son is Virochana, and whose son is Daityaraj Bali Maharaj. He is also one of the Mahajanas. In the 12 Mahajanas, their name appear. So here we hear Balivaya Sakir Vayam. Vayam is Yamraj himself, who is appearing here as Mahatma Vidur. So these are the conversations of Mahajanas. And so again, when she hears this, she is feeling very pleased, and she has a lot of respect towards her husband, who is so glorious that he satisfied her. Yet at the same time, she also understands her shortcoming. So a wife should understand the shortcoming of her husband and should protect her husband. She is supposed to always give satisfaction to her husband so that his body is protected. Otherwise, one can become a debauchee going outside the marriage and disturbing other ladies in the society. And similarly, ladies should not approach a sadhu. They should also stay within their marriage and follow the regulated principles in their life. So again, and a lady is, when she is young, she is protected by the father. In marriage, she is protected by the husband. And after the husband takes to Vanaprastha sannyas, she is protected by her sons. And if there are no sons, just like in the case of Kansa, his two wives, the daughters of Jarasandha, they did not have any son or daughter. So again, they went back to their father. So the daughter comes back to her father for protection if she does not have a son. And if her father is not there, they take shelter of, elderly sadhus. So there are, Vaishnavi ashramas they take shelter at. So there are various wonderful lessons that we hear. And in the beginning itself, Maitreya Muni had glorified, and he had also glorified Dhruv Maharaj. He said that the devotees of the Lord are so wonderful that they step over the head of death, Mrityu, and they focus on returning back home. So Dhruv Maharaj, he died very young. So he was very young when he left his body. But at that time, Nanda Sunanda and the Vaishnava devotees from, Vaikuntha, they came on their Viman, Hamsa Viman, to take Dhruv Maharaj, and seeing them, he immediately stepped over the death. So again, lightning and thunder, we talked about this. For a devotee, death is like lightning and thunder, and lightning happens before the thunder happens. So the thunder is the effect of the pain that comes at death, but the devotee quickly takes the lightning, gets the spiritual body and goes back home. The pain happens to the body, but there is no being in the body, so it doesn't matter. But in case of materialist, the thunder happens, and the effect of thunder, that perception that Lord Brahma created initially, the pain, the fearlessness that comes because of death, the thought of death, that's what a materialist experiences. And they don't get the lightning effect because they are further caught in the cycle of birth, death, old age, disease, the cycle of which is like a Ferris wheel, birth and death continues to go on, and they suffer in this material world, being conditioned by various kind of bodies provided by the material energy. So we should make every effort to overcome, to become fearless, to become surrendered, to become tolerant, to become humble. So many ways we can seek to become happy. And to become happy, what we have to do? What do we have to do to become happy? To engage in devotional service, to lead a regulated life in Krishna consciousness. We can all become happy, and not just of flickering happiness of this material world, but rather eternal happiness, which is like an overflowing ocean, right? Which can quickly, destroy all kind of burning agitation of our senses. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchyate. So by satisfying Lord Rishikesha, the master of the senses, all our senses will be satisfied. They would become peaceful and calm, and not just calm, they will be rejoicing, they will become happy by simple engagement in Krishna consciousness, in devotional service, which simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, this is where the chapter ends, and we heard about the great qualities of Prahlad Maharaj, as how he is one of the Mahajanas and how he is constantly seeing the Lord within and without, and he has no enemy. Yes, Hiranyakashipu considered him as an enemy, but Prahlad Maharaj never considered his father or any other living entity as his enemy. That is what it means to be a Ajat Shatru, one who does not have an enemy. Because we devotees understand that everyone, all living entities are actually devotees of Lord Shri Krishna. Jivera Surupure Krishna Nityadas. What's the difference? We understand that some know it, some don't. That's why some who know it are devotees, and some who don't know it becomes a demon, because being conditioned in this material nature, because of being caught in this world of relativity and not able to approach the absolute transcendental platform which is filled with eternal bliss. Hare Krishna. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitaya Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. If you have any questions, please ask.
Hare Krishna, dear viewers. So, thank you very much for joining us today for Srimad Bhagavatam class on Canto 3, Chapter 14. इस वक्त dear viewers, अगर आपके कुछ भी spiritual enquiries हैं, उनको आप comments area में हमें टाइप कर सकते हैं, हमें भेज सकते हैं. I will present these questions to Jiva Tattva Prabhu ji. जीवा तत्व प्रभु जी आपके क्वेश्चंस एड्रेस कर सकते हैं. भरत मकवाना जी, हरे कृष्णा सदीक्षा जी, संतोष जी, गीता देशा जी, अभिषेक जी, सुभाष रे, आप सभी का स्वागत है. महेश शर्मा जी, नेहा मंजरेकर जी ने कहा वेरी नाइसली एक्सप्लेन. मानसी मिश्रा जी, मुन्ना सिंह क्षत्रिय, सभी डिवोटीज ने ग्रीटिंग्स लिखे हैं प्रभु जी. थैंक यू डियर व्यूअर्स फॉर योर काइंड कमेंट्स एंड ग्रीटिंग्स. अमित तवा घोष, अभिषेक कुमार, राज किशोर चौधरी, नीना जी और मुरारी कुमार जी, सौरभ मंडल, इंदिरा नायर, गौतम, सनशाइन, विकास, अमर, शत्रुपा घोष, अनिल शॉ, दीप बनर्जी. हरे कृष्णा, हरि बोल. सभी को बहुत बहुत नमस्कार. तो प्रभु जी इस वक्त आई डू नॉट सी एनी क्वेश्चंस. हाउएवर आई वांट ऑल ऑफ अस टू हैव ए बेटर अंडरस्टैंडिंग. ऐसा अभी कल एक लाइव सेशन में क्वेश्चन पूछा गया था हमारे सेशन में, जो कि हमने बाद में देखा. द क्वेश्चन वाज, क्या भगवान डिवोटीज की परीक्षा लेते हैं और डिवोटी का मूड कैसा होना चाहिए अगर ऐसा रियलाइजेशन हो कि भगवान टेस्ट ले रहे हैं या ये टेस्टिंग टाइम्स हैं. सो व्हाट शुड वी डू? व्हाट शुड बी द मूड ऑफ ए डिवोटी इन टेस्टिंग सिचुएशंस इन लाइफ?
Krishna. So again, Acharyas explain that struggle or challenges when we have in our life, that is the symptom of life, especially in material condition. Right? We are constantly exercising so that we become strong, spiritually strong, to be able to go back home, to serve Lord Shri Krishna as he desires. And Bhagwan Pariksha jab lete hain, to that is to glorify the devotees. When Maya Devi, she is also, following the instructions of Bhagwan, she also poses various kind of challenges, various kind of examinations in front of us, right? She also tests us. This is because her duty is to differentiate who's a devotee and who's like a covered devotee. She's always making that distinction to differentiate a devotee from a non-devotee. She's always doing this test. So when we do not waver from our determination, utsahan nishayat dhairyat, right? So these are the things that we engage in devotional service with these feelings, with great enthusiasm, with great determination, with patience. And tat karma pravartana, the 9 process of devotional service. Sangha tyaga, to give up the association of materialists, right? The people who gossip and engage in sense gratification. Sato vritte, in following the footsteps of the acharyas, following the examples set by the Mahajanas, the acharyas, the gurus. So we can sadbir bhakti prasiddhati, we can make our spiritual, ourselves spiritually strong. We can purify ourselves. We should not just be happy with the status quo. I'm doing my 16 rounds, I'm following regulative principles. That is ground zero. You are not just committing any offense, but you are not rising above. Srila Prabhupada, he gives a very nice example. Basically, once it so happened that one of his disciples was responding to the letters that Srila Prabhupada would dictate him. Srila Prabhupada बहुत सी बार अपने disciples को लिखवाते थे कि ये response करना है different letters का, तो उसके अंदर एक enclosure करना भूल गया उनका जो disciple था. तो उन्होंने भेज दिया letter, but then he forgot the enclosure. So he came to Srila Prabhupada. बोलते हैं कि Srila Prabhupada, I'm so fallen, I forgot to put this enclosure. So Srila Prabhupada appreciated initially that, okay. But he continued to say that I'm so fallen that I forgot to include the enclosure. Srila Prabhupada said, what should you do? So he said, I'm so fallen, what can I do? I forgot to put in the enclosure. Srila Prabhupada this time is with stress asked, what should you do? So at that time he realized, oh, Srila Prabhupada is asking, what should I do now? Right? I made a mistake in the past, but what should I do now? So he said, Srila Prabhupada, I will write a letter of apology that I forgot to include this enclosure, and this time I will include the enclosure and send it, to the recipients. And Srila Prabhupada smiled and he said, yes, do that. Yes, human is there. We will make mistakes. And yes, there will be tribulations in our life. We will always be tested, because that is the symptom of life. In this material world, it is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. Everything is temporary and it is a place of misery. But when we engage in devotional service, we understand it is not the fall down that causes us to really be in a bad state, but rather not getting up is the true fall down. Just falling down, making a mistake is not everything. We can correct our mistake, we can purify ourselves, we can engage in devotional service, we can take actions to correct, ask for forgiveness from others for our mistakes, and continue to move forward. And also devotees, they are very easy, they never take offenses, and they don't want to commit offenses. So they will very quickly they ask for forgiveness, say sorry, I'm so sorry this mistake happened, I will try to rectify it. So again, that second statement is also very important. But then sometimes on the other side, a person may be in so much ego that you made a mistake, now you stay under my feet all the time. Devotees, they are already humble. How more humble can you make them? But they are focused on Lord Krishna. They are always under the feet of Lord Krishna. They cannot be under your feet, right? So that's also another aspect. So their focus is, what happens if somebody keeps pressing the devotees, then they give up this association. This is Jana Sanghasya. So again, they want to give up the association which is pratikul to the devotional service. So again, we always want to be surrendered, and the first two names of surrender, anukulyasa sankalpa, pratikulyasa varjanam. So we should always be very careful not to be in situations which are unfavorable to our devotional service. Yet at the same time, pray for all living entities, and not take offense from anyone. So hopefully this answers your question, that there are constant challenges, but we should always be in a humble mode, in a tolerant mode, following the footsteps of Acharyas. We can quickly cross over all the challenges. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Prabhuji, we do not have any more questions at this time.
We can do Nasima Devati. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Please join us for Nasima Devati. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
भक्त विघ्नाशक नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय, प्रहलाद महाराज की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, निताय गो प्रेमानंदे।
हरि हरि बोल।
हरे कृष्णा।